Hello, everybody. Good afternoon if you are in the Beijing time, and good morning, good early morning if you are in America's time. I'm Fabrice Seng, the founder of Climate Tech Ventures, and we have got the great pleasure to share with you this webinar according to the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement. It's a great time, as you know, and this treaty is could be viewed as the universal treaty of climate change track achievement to go ahead in this field. First of all, I would like just to share with you, if you've got any question during this webinar, do not hesitate to send them on directly on the YouTube in comments. We're going to connect with all the questions and to try to answer during all the sessions. Just to give you an overview about this webinar, the program is very simple. We are going to start with a very great panel with high-level and international speakers. And after the panel, we've got a very smart session to go deeper, even if it's on the technical side or on the economic side, with two exclusive keynotes. And after the keynotes, the third session will be an exclusive interview with a serial entrepreneur, now turned VCs, and dedicated to a special discussion on climate tech's era. So welcome for people who's going to join us at this moment. We're going to start with this. And as you know, we are in very special period. The COVID has impacted us not only on the sanitary plan, it's also about the mindset. Probably people around you or yourself have changed something since the last month. Something in your mind, something probably in your life, in job, or your family, or also something to act differently. It's a crisis also, as we know. It could be also an opportunity. And to do this, we know we are in a transformation era. After the great 30s that everyone known, are we going to switch now in the 30 rebooties? Everything has to be transformed by the economic model, on the social plan, on the energy mix to provide to globally. It's a real impressive work to achieve today. If I compare this effect of the COVID to the first step on the moon, where all the humanity are watching this great step for all of us, for the world, the COVID has reconnected us on something. The COVID era, everyone have been embedded in something very strange, very unique. At the same moment, all the people of the world were on lockdown mode. At home, stay at home, don't go to work, only if it's very necessary. Don't meet your family, don't meet your friend. And it's a unique moment that all the humanity have engaged and experienced. According to this, massive transformation, fast-track transformation have been done by governments, by enterprise, by people, by the civil society. It has accelerated many disruptions, many innovations to try to have a daily life as viable as possible. So if I compare to now to the climate change, the issue is, are we any vaccine against the temperature rising? We try to find one for COVID and for the climate change. there is a medicine for this? We don't know. It's embedded many things, many other assets to find the solutions. We have to synchronize capital allocations. We have to synchronize the research and innovation. We have to synchronize the government decision, how people work, how people take decisions and actions. It engaged also the civil society. It engaged institutions. It engaged capital markets and their life cycle, their long-term view or short-term view. It has to couple with all these things. And the question we're going to address now is, we know that we have to shift to a healthier GDP, a healthier model. After, or in this word after, could we produce more for more people with less, or the model will be something else? We don't know yet. Probably we have to go and to find with a deeper sense in our decision and action. Probably we have also, it's not only a philosophical question, it's just to give sense on things. Let's start with giving sense to the work we do, to the job where we are. If you sit on the board of a company, if you are a policy maker, if you are a student, if you are involved in many places in your communities, in your towns, in your region, in your countries, it takes the time to give sense to things. And we have to drive also things for new kind of jobs, new kind of knowledge, new kind of competencies, new kind of enterprise to build up or to transform. This is now a great, great also opportunity. We think so for climate change. And we've got the great, great pleasure to welcome high-level speakers for this special session. A very impressive lineup. They've got by their field, according to their background, according to what they do today. And we surely have interesting discussion during this panel and to go further in after in the keynote. So let's now start this panel fire chat, and I will introduce you for starting Dr. Isabelle Czarnikowski-Loriol. Isabelle, she's a geologist involved in the BRGM, which is the French Institute of Geology and Survey. She is involved in many international committees as international speaker on carbon capture and storage. This is her specialty, and she's also the research and public officer of the BRGM. So very pleased to have you, Isabelle, and welcome. We've got also the pleasure to have another expert in the economic field, Professor Chao-Zou Chi from Wuhan University. Professor Chi is also an expert in carbon policies and carbon markets, and he's involved both in regional and national level according to the implementation of the Paris Agreement by China. Professor Chi is also the director of the European Studies Center and the director also of the climate change and energy economics by the Wuhan University. Very pleased to welcome you, Professor Chi.
Thank you.
And we have also the opportunity to have other speakers, but unfortunately, we're supposed to also welcome Mathieu Muchery, who is Chief Economist Officer. Mathieu couldn't be there this morning, so he really apologized for this. If he could connect further, we're going to try. But unfortunately, Mathieu Muchery wouldn't be there. And there could be also a new surprise within this panel if the early time by Montreal is not so early as it's supposed to be. So let's start now with this exclusive panel and let you, my distinguished speaker, present better yourself. So the floor is yours for you two, and probably let's start by Dr. Isabelle Czernikowski-Loriol.
Okay, so I thank you very much, Fabrice, for this very interesting introduction to the webinar, which was to the point. So thank you for inviting me at this webinar. So I work at BRGM, the French Geological Survey, which is France's reference public institution for earth science applications. BRGM is conducting scientific research and supporting public policies for the management of subsurface and surface resources and risks. So I have a PhD in geosciences. I started my career working on geothermal energy or renewable energy. Then I moved to CO2 geological storage and what is called CO2 capture and storage, CCS, which is a key technology to mitigate climate change. I participated to the very first European research project in 1993, then to many other projects. I am involved in a significant number of French, European, and international bodies working for enabling the development and deployment of CCS. Notably, I am the President Emeritus of CO2 GeoNet, the European Network of Excellence on CO2 geological storage. CO2 GeoNet is an association under French law. Members are 28 leading research institutes over 20 European countries. And I am also member of the management board of the French Club CO2, which is the French team for CCS, an association gathering 28 industry and research organizations.
So thank you very much, Isabelle, for this introduction. And I let now the floor to Professor Chaozhou Qi from Wuhan University. Please, Professor.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be invited by Fabrice to attend this very interesting and important webinar to communicate with everyone, especially China and European experts and people who are pay much attention to climate change. It's my great pleasure. Yes, I am the director of the European Studies Center of Wuhan University in China. And in 2015, I was honored by the European Union to be the Jean Monnet Chair Professor because my education and teaching in terms of the integration of the European Union, especially the European Union's low carbon transport policies and its carbon market. And I'm also the director of the climate change and energy economics in Wuhan University. During the past years, I mainly focus on three research fields. The first is the carbon market, because since the end of 2011, Hubei province and the other 6 provinces and cities in China were selected by Chinese government as their carbon market pilots or ETS pilots to try to control their carbon emission. I was appointed by the provincial government to be the chief economist to help the government to study and design the ETS pilots policy and assessment to the policy. And the second field is that the energy transition in the big energy companies of China I help some companies, energy companies, how to transfer their energy structure from the coal and fossil energy to the renewable energy, and assess their economic cost and benefit, and what kind of transfer strategies that the companies should adopt. And the third field of my research is that the climate change risk. Now my team cooperate with the team from UK and Tsinghua University of China, very, very international big team. We cooperate together to assess the climate change risk, including the direct risk and indirect risk. My team is charging of the indirect risk. We try to, from the economics point of view, to assess the climate change affect the companies and individuals or communities and the cities, how to affect their economy growth, the profit of their company, and the health to the public, and how to, through their financial system and market system, to enlarge the climate change risk into a systemic risk in the region or the whole country. And we try to provide some policy suggestion to the government, the local government and the national government, or the international, especially the COP26 next year in the UK. This is my job and research field. Thank you very much.
It's a very impressive, very two background and two key people. We have got the great honor to have on board for this exclusive webinar. So let's start with the first question. We want to address you and to share. So for the audience, if you have any comments, any remarks or question, also do not hesitate for people who just joining us to send them on the YouTube, under the YouTube live stream. We're going to collect them and to try to answer as better as we can. So before asking this first question, just back 5 years ago, as we know, this Paris Agreement is an international treaty under the framework of the Conference of Parties 21. It has been adopted 5 years ago, signed just the year after in 2016, and ratified just a couple of weeks ago in November 2020. So to manage the raising of the temperature below 1.5 or 1 or 2 degrees, do you think that Paris Agreement is a good treaty? In fact, it's supposed to be. It's the treaty to do this. For you, what is really Paris Agreement? And the other question, you can answer both. What is not? What finally we can't expect more from Paris Agreement? Who would like to start with this question? Probably Isabelle or Chauzo?
Okay.
Isabelle?
Okay, I can start. You know, in 2015, I was in Paris at the COP21, representing CO2 Dionet, a research NGO accredited by UNFCCC. And it was exciting to see so many people interacting and negotiating. And in the end, a wonderful success in reaching an international agreement for combating climate change. So it's the start of a real global recognition of the seriousness of the problem and of the need to act, to limit it as much as possible, and also to adapt. recognition is a prerequisite to concrete action. And you know, before the Paris Agreement, when I was explaining what my research was about, a frequent reaction was, why are you studying this? There is no global warming. It is due to natural variations. It is not human-induced. It is true that the science-based evidence was not as strong as now. However, we started our first European research project on CO2 geological storage in 1993 because some people in the European Commission and European countries were beginning to suspect that human activities were disrupting the climate. And they thought that we should not wait until we were sure before developing solutions, because then it would be too late. So I must say that the pioneering position taken at the time in the midst of general indifference proved to be a wise anticipation. So COP21 and the Paris Agreement in 2015 was indeed a turning point for me. I could feel it. For the first time, there was a global consensus on the reality of global warming due to human activities, with an agreement signed to contain it well below 2 degrees. And now we see that society is beginning to mobilize strongly, especially young people, and ask in order to find solutions and to ask for solutions, particularly for reducing the CO2 emissions that are the main causes of global warming. So I think it is very positive to see all this evolution, even if sometimes you can think that it is going too slow.
Thanks, Isabelle. Just to add a more personal experience, because as you mentioned, you were there at the COP21. You said me before preparing this webinar that you were animating a workshop at the COP21. What was your experience 5 years ago? Could you share it with us, how you feel the atmosphere at this time and your personal experience there?
Yeah. So it's true, with CO2 GeoNet and other international organizations, we organized side events and booths to explain what CCS is and how it can help. It is a powerful tool to mitigate climate change. And we did that both in the negotiation zone with restricted access and the public zone where many citizens were able to come. And we had very, very good interactions with, this is also this COP21 enabled interaction with all the actors of society. And this was really exciting to see that. And also it was really exciting to see the conclusion with a success, which was not the case of previous COP conferences. So there was a real excitement all over the place, but also, you know, I received some messages, texts from colleagues in other countries of Europe saying, that's great, a big success. And they were all excited because, as I told you, if there is not global recognition of the problem, no action can be implemented.
So, thank you very much, Isabelle, for sharing your point of view and also your experience at COP21. It's very appreciated to have a player there. I think also Professor Chaozo Chi was not far from Paris Agreement physically 5 years ago. So I will address and also share with you the same question for you. What is it, Paris Agreement?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Yes, in 2015, I attended the COP 21 in Paris. This time is my second time to visit Paris, because 12 years ago, when at that time I was a young scholar for my PhD, I started 1 year in Paris. So after 12 years, I come back Paris just for the COP21. So the COP21, give me a very, very deep impression. I can summarize 4 key words in terms of the Paris Agreement and the COP21. The first word is it's a milestone of the global climate change governance. Because before the Paris Agreement and the COP21, there are so many years, the global, different countries, different interest groups, they negotiate and discuss and so many years and cannot reach a common realization and so on. So this, I think, Paris Agreement signed in COP21 is a milestone. This is the first key words. And the second key words is it's innovation. Because the Paris Agreement, the COP21, is change or innovate the mechanism of the global governance from the top to down, become to bottom to up. So it's try to encourage every country try to contribute, try to do their best to contribute to the global climate change based on their own ability and responsibility. So I think it's a very good example, innovation in terms of the climate change, global climate change agreement. And the third keyword is cooperation. Because so many different countries, different size, population, rich or poor countries, they can sit down and discuss and try to cooperation, especially France, European Union, China, United States, and so many leader countries, they try to cooperate. I remember just before the Paris COP21, China signed many statements with France, with European Union, with the United States, with Brasilia, with Russia, with India, with South Africa, and so many countries. So we try to push and cooperation. So that means in terms of the global climate change governance, the cooperation is very, very important. Paris Agreement signed is a successful example for the cooperation. And the 4 keywords is openness. Because of the Paris Agreement signed, more and more people in all the world, every country, our hopeless for our, we can fight against the climate change, and finally we can be successful. It's more and stronger hopeless and how to say, calmness. So more and more people, they have a stronger and stronger hopeless when they try to fight against the climate change. I think the Paris Agreement is a milestone in our human history of the fighting against the climate change. It's so important. Thank you.
Thanks again, Professor Xiaozhou Qi, for sharing your insight, your engagement also, and your implication on what you have done and what you have see who have been done to make this treaty happen. And also we can feel that the work ahead also now is very high as the openness everyone could share with this. And I've got also breaking news, and thank you also, Isabelle, for sharing this. The breaking news is we know it's early time by Americas, and in particular by Montreal. And I've got the pleasure also to welcome another speaker who just jumped in the panel and come with us. This is Stéphane Joaquin. Stéphane is a serial entrepreneur, now turned VC with his own VC boutique. And we just, Stéphane, start with this first question of Paris Agreement. What is it or what is it not for you? I'll let you, Stéphane, better introduce yourself, and welcome, with the pleasure to have you with us for this webinar.
Thank you. Paris Agreement, what is it? What is it not for me? For me, the Paris Agreement is the culmination of years of work from Kyoto all the way until, all the COP that we went to in Durban and Rio and all of the different cities and all of the discussions that led up to Paris. I think at the time you had President Obama, who was, pushing very hard, and so many other, world leaders to come to targets that would be enforceable. And the problem is, what it's not is, it's not on its own an agreement that can police all of the targets. That's what it's not. At the time, people asked the question, what if the targets will not be met? What will be the, what will be the punishment, right? And what will be the incentive of a country to make difficult cuts in decarbonization if another country doesn't do it, right? And what would happen if one country would point to another country and say, well, they didn't do it, so I don't want to do it. And there was a lot of questioning around that. So it's not self-governing. What it needs to be is well partnered with private sector. That's what it should be. It should be a public-private partnership where the governments set policy, but the private sector takes the ball and runs with it and really pushes the innovations. And so as a segue into introducing myself, I'm all about the innovations, right? Innovations and technologies are the only way that we have ever reduced the price significantly of any new technology or new development, new shift in industries. It's always been about efficiencies, cost reductions. If we ever just rely on government subsidies and government policies, we have a limited growth of this or this technology, this or this industry. A good example is telecom. Where I came from for 20 years, I was in telecom industry, and we reinvented the way that we communicate in the world using internet technology. And you didn't see companies like Cisco, while they were in the process of removing the market share away from Lucent, Alcatel, Nortel, Siemens, Nokia, companies like that. You didn't see Cisco say, I need government policy, I need subsidy, I need handouts. You saw them innovate, you saw them invent, you saw them acquire technology companies, and slowly but surely, you saw them evolve from just being the backbone of the internet to being, a telco vendor, and that's what needs to happen. Cisco is just one example, but that's what needs to happen in the world of clean tech, renewable energies, water, agricultural technologies, everything around clean tech needs to be pushed by innovations, and needs to have the private sector join the public sector in order to make the Paris targets achievable.
So this is a good point and a good switch to the question, and also for the panel, as you all represent the public and the private with all the broad view and complementary point of view to address the same issue. In fact, thanks Stefan for sharing this with all the audience. For people who just come and see the stream, do not hesitate to send us your comments and questions on the YouTube comments part. We're going to collect them and to address at the better way of with the speaker to answer to your question or remarks. Let's start now with the second question. It's about time or timing. The timing is very important when you want to make things happen. You mentioned, Stefan, what happens if we don't meet the target. You said also, Professor Chi, that openness is very, very high, and we have to cope with this result with the openness. And as you mentioned also, Isabel, the implication, the expectations of the civil society also that you noticed when you were on the COP21 in the public workshop open with the civil society. If we want to meet this, do you think we are today ready? Now the treaty is signed just last month for 188 countries. Are we ready? And the question more particular is, are we really ready today? Because we have very few time if we want to connect with this target and to try to manage things and avoid maximum side effects. Who would like to start to answer? It's up to you. Professor Chi, you want to start?
Yeah, okay. So I think we are not ready enough, because first of all, in terms of the target of the Paris Agreement and the actually CO2 emission in our world, there is still a very huge gap between the target and the real CO2 emission. So how to how to smaller the gap between the real CO2 emission and the Paris government target is still many countries, especially the major countries, for example, the European Union, the United States, China, and so on, to cooperate and to give very good examples, and especially very important to cooperation, not to criticize each other. We must cooperation in these fields. Except the cooperation, there's no other way to go to realize the Paris Agreement target. And the second, we must take actions, because the Paris Agreement signed, we have a target, we have many policies and ideas and innovations and so on, but we need actions, especially the actions from the enterprises. And the third, we also need technology revolution in the energy transfer fields, because the energy transfer have to pay a very high economic price, especially some high carbon assets sectors. If they transfer their assets from the high carbon to low carbon, that means at the same time, maybe there are many workers have to lose their job, and in a short time or middle term, maybe they cannot find new job because of their abilities. So how to transfer and help the high carbon sectors, stably and economic efficiency transfer from the high carbon assets to low carbon assets, it still needs some policy design and try to balance, the poor groups, the weak groups of the society, and finally, recently there is a very active signals that more and more countries declare their carbon neutrality targets. I think this is a very strong signals and a very strong long-term target, which can price and push the current policy design, try to reach or realize the carbon neutral target, which will provide a very strong support for the Paris Agreement target, I think. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Professor Chao Chi, for this, broad overview of, again, the work ahead of us to make it. It's impressive, the task to drive, the many multitask and multi-level to drive it. As you mentioned, cooperation is fundamental to make a treaty a real agreement. To be agreed on the way to drive things, we have to cooperate at multi-parties and multi-levels. It's very important that you have highlighted. I would like to address the same question with Dr. Isabel Czarnikowski-Loyol. Please, Isabel.
Yeah. So are we ready or not to meet the targets of the Paris Agreement? This is a question. And I hope so. I hope so. And I hope that there is now a strong willingness from each actor of society to take its part and to act where it can. Many different concerted actions need to be taken, and technological solutions, but not only. I think behavioral change is also important. And it is not easy to design appropriate and coherent measures, then to implement them effectively and timely. I will refer now to the French High Council for the Climate. Its first report in 2019 was entitled Acting in Coherence with Ambitions. The report states that France is not on a greenhouse gas emission trajectory compatible with its international commitments, and that even if the initial efforts made are real, they are clearly not sufficient, have not produced the expected results, and have not led to the deep socio-economic transformations necessary to move towards carbon neutrality. But I think this is the situation in most countries. All countries need now to act in coherence with the Paris Agreement. As said by the French High Council for the Climate, we have a little less than a generation left to accomplish the bulk of the changes that will both mitigate and adapt to climate change. So this is a great opportunity. which raises many concerns, but also holds great promises.
Yes, that's you target, Dr. Isabelle Czernikowski-Loyal, that the importance of the coherence between treaty and actions, and we would like to also to address the same question for you, Stefan. Do you think, as you know, we are going very fast in the startup ecosystem and the VC side? Do you think that governments and institutions are going faster? They couldn't be switched in one click as a startup, but how can what can you could share or suggest to the probably I think that we have just lost Stefan. We're going to try, probably he's going to reconnect. So we are going just to wait with this. And just to probably to go to, before going to the other question, we've got some remarks and questions from the public. The question, yes, I'm going to share with you both, or three. Stefan, if you could reconnect, it will be very, very appreciated. The question is, how do you make private partners comply with the Paris Agreement if their first priority is to make profits? How can we engage the private sector to comply with Paris Agreement? Who would like to start with the... Hi, Stefan, you're back.
Yeah, we're trying on a different device. Maybe it'll be better on this device.
Okay, good. So I share with you this question from the audience. The question is, how do you make private partners comply with the Paris Agreement if their first priority is to make profits? How can we encourage the private sector to better achieve the goals by its side?
Yeah, I saw that question. I think it was Pascal who sent that question.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for that question. It's an important question as well. You can impose all kinds of regulation and punishments, you know, in the sense of carbon taxes or various other ways, levers that governments have in order to incentivize the private sector, but that is of limited value. Mm-hmm. I want everybody to think about the difference between being less bad and more good, right? Less bad, more good. Which one do we want to send our energy to? Less bad or more good? The private sector is structured to go for profits. So you can go against the flow, or you can go with the flow. You will have a lot more success if you go with the flow in the direction the private sector is naturally inclined to go, which is towards profits. So what does that mean? That means that we have to create a clean tech universe and a decarbonized, industry or multiple vertical industries that are geared towards making profits. And the biggest impact in the world happens when a lot of people make a lot of money. So if, for example, wind farms were to be way more profitable than they are today, because the wind turbines cost 1/3 the price of what we can normally see from the 5 big vendors in the world of wind turbines, like from Siemens or GE or Vestas, where their only innovations really are the size of the blades, right? They made it bigger this year, next year they made it even bigger. That's not very innovative. So if there were disruptions and technologies that came in to make things cost a lot less, and the good news is for everyone, they exist. They exist in every vertical industry within the world of sustainability. There would be profits to be made by selling more equipment and technology, profits to be made by having more profitable wind farms that don't take 25 years to become bankable and that don't require major government subsidies at a time when governments can't afford it anyway. Governments are all in deficit. They need the profitability to save them from having to, put difficult budgets into this, which means it's a zero-sum game. It means they can't put it into other sectors of the economy. We're in a pandemic. Governments might need to put money into, healthcare services. So they will be making a decision. Do we, close the coal plants and subsidize the wind farm, or do we open more hospitals because people are dying of a pandemic? You know which one they're going to choose, right? So that's the answer really to the question. It's not so much about forcing private sector into action. It's more about creating a regulatory environment that is conducive to allowing the profits to drive the impact.
Sure. Thanks for Stéphane for sharing this, and thanks also for Pascal for this specific question. Do you want to add something, Professor Chaozhou-Chi, on the public private contribution?
Yes, I just want to get one point. I think the carbon market or the ETS, which is the market-oriented policy, can help the private companies, try to balance their profit and reduce their CO2 emission. Yes, the carbon market, just like the European EU ETS now, when the carbon price is a reasonable level, which can drive the private firms try to reduce their carbon emission. And if we reduce more, they can earn more from the carbon market. I think it's a double win. If they do better in terms of their emission reduction, they can earn better from the carbon market. I think this is a very good market-oriented policy. That's why China now try to develop its national carbon market, which will cover almost how many 3 billion tons CO2 emission in the first stage, just to cover the power sector, the one sector, and then enlarge its coverage from the power sector to steel sector, the cement sector, and until 8 major sectors, almost 30 subsectors. So many, state-owned companies and many private companies will covered by the carbon market. We believe it's a very good policy. But the carbon market must based on the law, firstly. So law can arrange, protect, support strongly the carbon market to operate smoothly. Yeah, it's my one point. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Professor Chi, for adding your compliment on this issue, how to constrain the private sector, and the answer is also not only about the regulatory way, as you noticed, Stefan. It could be also adapted with the capital market and also the carbon market in a macroeconomic view to address the issue. Dr. Isabel Czernikowski, what do you think about this? Even if you are in the technical engineering side and public and research as a chief officer by BRGM, what could the private sector, and in particular industries that you know better, to be more proactive and to make it like a voluntary way, less than by constraints and by the law or the regulatory side? What could we engage them in this way?
The answers given by the two other panelists were very convincing. And I may add that the private sector is already engaging into all the changes. There are more and more announcements of carbon neutrality pledges, objectives for companies. And I think that money is not the only objective of companies and of the people working in these companies. As you said, Fabrice, earlier this morning, people wants to give more sense to their job. And especially young people working in these companies, they also want to not only make money, but also to solve, society issues, and climate change is now being recognized as a top issue. So.
Okay, thanks. We are going to go further. Thanks for your question. Also, the audience, do not hesitate to share also your comments and so. We are going to go to the question number 3. Probably we're going to also to make one question with the third and the fourth point. It's about Paris Agreement. Do you think it's really now a new chapter which is opening? We hope so. If we bridge the COVID and the massive recovery plans, if we bridge, as you mentioned also, Professor Chi, the many net zero pledges from more and more countries, as you mentioned also, Dr. Isabel Czernikowski-Loriol, about also the carbon neutrality plans by industries and to engage their employers also. As you also said, Stefan, according to the way to drive innovation, to incentive people, incentive players in the good way, in this good way, we expect all. Probably there will have a new chapter also for US and the Paris Agreement from the next January in 2021. Do you think we are now switching in this new chapter, and it belongs to us to write this chapter all together? It's much more an open remark. If you want to add.
I think that we're on our. I think that there's reason to be optimistic, but I also think that we have to listen to the climate scientists. The United Nations, for example, has its role to play in this whole thing. Cristina Figueres, one of the leaders in climate in the international community and the UN, will tell you very directly and bluntly that the growth rates of each vertical industry within renewable energy, within other sustainability industries, the growth rates are not good enough. They're good. The 10% or 12% year over year growth rates of the respective, wind, solar, hydro, geothermal, ag tech, they're good growth rates in general when you look at an industry. But if the goal here is to stop us from getting to 2 degrees of temperature increase, they're nowhere near fast enough. This is the message from people like Cristina Figueres and other climate scientists, is we're not even close. Okay? That's the message. We're growing like this. We have to grow like this. We need a hockey stick of growth. I'm Canadian, so I like hockey stick. We need a hockey stick of growth. So while we congratulate ourselves internationally for all of our progress, we have to remain goal-oriented. And the goal is to stop us from getting to 2 degrees and even beyond potentially. We are on track to maybe get to 3 degrees of temperature increase, right? China is a great example of a country which has taken the Paris, Accord very seriously and has made massive investments in renewable energies and all other forms of clean tech, but have continued to also be a big polluter. They have a very big appetite for energy in China. So they're a huge, polluter and also a huge investor in clean. India as well, under the Modi government, major plans to decommission thousands of coal plants, and stood in front of the Élysée Palace with Macron and said, we are going to double down on solar and wind, but continue to pollute also. Canada, my country, okay, which likes to pretend like it's the good actor, the wonderful actor around the world, Prime Minister Trudeau put $700 million through the Business Development Bank of Canada, the BDC, it's called, for clean tech, and said Canada should be a leader in clean tech. And it was supposed to be deployed, that $700 million, within 3 years. And I can tell you that 4.5 years later, only a fraction of that money has actually made its way into, I think it's about 150 million at this point, has made its way into the private sector. And the reason they haven't invested the rest is because they can't find deals that they like, that are bankable for them, that cover them well enough. So what I'm saying to you is, we're ready, but it's not happening fast enough, and we need to start adjusting our tolerance for risk. This is the problem. The problem is that the industries around sustainability are capital intensive, which means that it's not some software application that wants to be the best, better than Instagram. Where the ramification of failure is, well, your software didn't work. Here you have to risk millions and hundreds of millions of dollars and potentially find out you lose that money. So this is why many times innovations don't find their way into large projects. So industrially and also, policy-wise, governmentally, we need to change our risk tolerances in order for the growth rates to increase.
Thanks, Stéphane, to also to have your insightful point of view according to the speed to go and the model to go, the operational way to go, and we notice in this also a question very appreciated by the audience, all the question and remarks also to complement that you said, and I will share you all, also if you want to answer, Dr. Isabelle Czernikowski-Loriol or Professor Chao-Zou Chi. I share it with you. Which progresses are needed at the next COP, the COP26 for Glasgow, to really move ahead towards the Paris goal. So we are just less than 1 year for the COP26 at Glasgow. Now we have set up a broad view of what we have to achieve, how to achieve it. What can we make this year or for the beginning of the next year, 2021, to start and to make much more achievement from this month to November 26th. What we can make actions today, tomorrow, directly.
Okay, may I start?
Please, Isabelle.
Okay, so I think we should, now that there is a real awareness and will to act, I think we need to start implementing the solutions that have been developed recently. And also increase our research and innovation efforts. We need more fundamental research and also applied research. We need to test at small scale and also at full scale in real field conditions, various solutions. This is a way to design solutions that are efficient, safe, environmental friendly, and cost effective. And what is certain is that we will not achieve carbon neutrality if we don't mobilize all the possible means. We must not ignore or neglect a possible tool. We should say to ourselves, we should not say to ourselves that, for instance, this tool we will see later if we need it, because then we will have lost time to develop it, and it will be ready to be deployed too late. So the more tools we have in our toolbox, the more chances we give ourselves of being able to achieve the objective set, and the more flexibility we have in order to achieve this at a lowest cost and in a just way without leaving anyone by the wayside. So I think it is really important to think at territory level to find the best solutions and combinations of solutions that are suited to the territory, depending on its geographical characteristic, geological, environmental, and socioeconomic characteristics. This is what we need to do, in my opinion.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dr. Isabelle Czernikowski-Loriol. I would like also to ask, according to the net zero pledges of China and also many countries, to go in this field around the issue aside Paris Agreement. Do you think that there is a COVID effect today, according to the massive recovery plans on the top agenda of quite all governments on the world? Do you think this COVID effect and massive recovery plans could be also an accelerator for also the kind of New Deal or Green New Deal or Green Deal, as we used to call it in Europe, better aligning economic, social, environmental policies and the target of the Paris Agreement itself? Do you think that these massive recovery plans are also a kickoff to accelerate, and also when we're going to meet at the COP26, have the opportunity to, yes, to say we are in the good way? Now we have enough setting policies, we have all in the box, we have just to deploy now. What do you think, Professor Charles Ouchi?
Yes, I think because of the COVID-19, the world economy, suffer a very heavy damage. And but however, in recent months, from the European Union and more countries, include China, declare their green recovery strategy or plan, and especially declare their carbon neutrality target. I think the carbon neutrality target, which will play more important roles than the other, target, is even it's much more than the target of the Paris Agreement. From my point of view, after President Xi Jinping of China declare our carbon neutrality target the past 2 months, the central government or different ministry and the local government, especially some big companies, they take actions quickly. For example, the major biggest energy companies, the top 5 energy companies, they have organized their carbon neutrality target and the strategy or plan conference. They invite many very important experts or some policy makers to attend their consultant conference or workshop to help them to plan their strategy and their roadmap in terms of their company's carbon neutrality. I think this is a very very ambitious progress, and it's will be the very hot topic in the Glasgow COP26, the carbon neutrality, and the policies and the actions behind the carbon neutrality. This is the first point. And the second is that in terms of the green recovery from the COVID-19, I think the world economy need help each other and cooperation. This is very important because of the European Union's Green Deal. The Green Deal. In the end of last year, when the European Union Commission announced their Green Deal, in China, we pay much more attention to the European Green Deal. We researched it, and we analyzed the European Green Deal, the very detailed. We also provide many policy suggestions based on the European Green Deal, which affect Chinese central government and their policy, including the carbon neutrality target, very strongly because of the European Green Deal. So I think the idea, the strategy between different countries can, affect very strongly and closely. The European Green Deal is a very good example. And the third point is that the technology revolution is very important. And with the low cost or with the decreasing cost, especially the renewable technology, including solar power, wind power, and so on. If this renewable technology its cost can lower much more, even cheaper than the coal-fired electricity. The market itself can, drive the private firm. They do their business at these directions. Yeah. So the technology with a very lower cost is very, very important. But if we want to get the renewable technology with low cost, it also needs some policies to support, to design, trying to direct the direction of the low cost technology to the direction what we want. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, Professor Chi. To align not only policies, but the way we have to bootstrap new technologies, to bootstrap innovations, to make it happen, and the force to drive to achieve it. I would like to thank you all, the panelists, for this session. Thanks also the audience for sharing your question. We have just take a little bit more time for answering it, but it's a pleasure to share also with you all and to make interaction for this special webinar. So now let's drive to the keynote session. We will have, in this case, still 5 minutes to 7 minutes for each keynote, and after move to the exclusive talk with Stefan, dedicated to climate tech and the track achievement he has already done. So now let's go to the keynote session. To go further, we have the pleasure to have Dr. Isabelle Czernikowski-Loriol, who is the Chief Officer on Research and Public Policy by BRGM. Isabelle, just tell me when you are ready.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
I think yes, we all see your screen. Could you make it screen
Great.
for
So,
everyone?
I am starting.
Okay. At the technique side, is it okay for you, George? Is it on
the audience can see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Excellent.
So the floor is yours, Isabelle.
So okay, I am
7 minutes.
Yes, I'm very pleased to present to briefly the.
Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
Yeah.
The generic is online.
Okay.
It's like a bridge, a video bridge. In the just 1 minute. Just 1 second. Sorry.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. 4, 3, 2. We come back. 1.
Okay. Please, Isabelle.
Okay, so if everybody see my screen, then I am very pleased to present the CCS technology, what was specifically developed to tackle the climate change challenge. And I will also briefly address some other subsurface technological solutions to mitigate climate change. The Paris Climate Agreement is about, limiting the temperature well below 2 degrees. But what is really important is to achieve a balance between emissions and removal by sinks, which is what we call now the carbon neutrality. And also, it's important to recognize and implement mitigation actions that have to be indicated in the nationally determined contribution that every country needs to communicate every 5 years. And Article 10 say that it's important to strengthen cooperative action on technology development and transfer. And one of these key technologies is CCS. And as I told you before, I was at the COP21 conference to contribute to explain what is CCS and why it is an important technological tool. We had side events and booths, both in the negotiation zone and in the public zone. So what is CCS? It is a geological carbon sink. It is returning the carbon back into the underground for storing it in deep geological formations. As most CO2 emissions come from the use of fossil fuels that was extracted from the underground, and let's put it back into the underground. And we know that it is possible to do it because nature traps many CO2 fields in natural CO2 fields in many countries underground. And so what we have to do is to capture CO2 at industrial facilities, transport it to suitable storage sites for storing it deep underground. And if possible, also use some of the CO2 to produce useful products. So there are two main types of storage sites. CO2 is stored at depths greater than 1 kilometer, either in depleted oil and gas reservoirs, which can be filled by CO2 now, or in deep saline aquifers, which have massive storage capacities. And in both cases, CO2 is stored not in a gas phase, but in a dense phase. And it's trapped between the mineral grains in the porosity of the rock. And the storage is overlain by an impermeable cap rock. CCS is already a reality. There are, as you see in this picture, projects ongoing. The large circles represent commercial CCS facilities. In red, they are in operation or in construction. In blue, they are in development, while the small dots are pilot and demonstration facilities. So you can see that the CCS is installed on power production facilities, but also on various types of industries. And storage occur currently either in deep saline aquifers or in depleted hydrocarbon fields, and also either onshore or offshore. All this is possible. Currently, we have 26 commercial CCS operations ongoing, which represents about 40 million tons CO2 per year that is being captured and stored in 2020. And there is a rapid scaling up is needed if we want to reach the objectives of the climate of the Paris Agreement, from 40 million tons to more than 5 gigatons of CO2. So this is a huge challenge. And how to enable this? First, we have to increase the research and innovation efforts to reduce costs, improve performance, identify suitable storage sites, and investigate the best CCUS schemes suited to each territory. We need also to run more pilot and demonstration projects to test in real field conditions the technology, and also to test administrative and regulatory procedures and to foster dialogue with stakeholders and citizens. And we need to advance the business case. The current projects that are in operation were able to run because of public subsidies or because of revenues from CO2 use, mainly from enhanced oil recovery. In certain countries, there is a CO2 tax, like in Norway. In US, recently, there is a 45Q tax credit, which gives $50 per metric ton of stored CO2 in saline aquifer, or $35 if CO2 is for instance, used for enhanced oil recovery and stored in depleted gas field. there is also emission trading system like the EU ETS, which is the price is currently too low to enable the rapid development of this technology and deployment. And what is also really important is communicate on CCS as an important climate tech, because CCS is not much known by citizens, but also by policymakers. Then I want to stress that CCS, renewable, and hydrogen are three key pillars to mitigate climate change. The three strongly depend on the subsurface resources and the storage capacity. They are complementary for mitigating climate change, and even they can work in synergies. For instance, CCS and biomass can provide negative emission, withdrawing CO2 from the atmosphere. CCS and geothermal makes possible to combine CO2 storage while extracting heat from the underground. CCS and energy storage make possible to store excess renewable power by producing green hydrogen that can be combined with captured CO2 to produce synthetic hydrocarbon that can be easily stored. And also CCS and hydrogen, we can now produce massive amounts of hydrogen, which is called blue hydrogen, from natural gas or coal. And when we combine it with CCS, we ensure that zero CO2 emissions are real. So the underground has a great potential to serve climate change mitigation and preserve the atmosphere, for storing the CO2, for producing a non-intermittent renewable energy, which is geothermal energy for heat and power, for storing massive quantities of energy in complement to above ground solutions, for storing the massive needs for storing renewable energy and also recoverable fatal energy. And the underground is also very important for providing the huge metal resources to enable the massive deployment of renewables, and also to store the nuclear waste in deep geological formation. As you know, nuclear energy does not emit CO2, so it can be also in the portfolio of solutions. So for all these different applications of the use of the underground, there are quite common challenges, that is the access to the knowledge of the subsurface, the development of innovative methods for exploration, characterization, and exploitation. And you have also to know that to prepare project takes time, and that's why we need to start now. And capital is also there are also capital intensive solutions where the high investment costs are needed at the start, in particular because of the high cost of drilling. Also, there are uncertainties inherent to the natural character of the geological media. Of course, these uncertainties decrease with time as exploration and exploitation of a site progresses, but they still exist. So for all these reasons, funds are needed to cover the geological risk in case one site does not have the expected characteristics and behavior. And for all these projects, it is really important that stakeholders are involved from the very early preparation of the project, because the projects need to make sense for them and for their territory. And also what is really important is to think the underground in 3 and 4D dimension, to have a smart management of it to serve many applications. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Czarnikowski-Loriol, for this broad overview of the underground and his asset to contribute positively, not only to climate change, but much more on the positive environmental contribution, also the contribution towards energy and new and renewable energy to meet these goals. For the audience, we're going to share the presentation, and all the link will be embedded on YouTube and our website. So do not hesitate to have it when it will be uploaded. Now we're going to the next keynote to go deeper in much more Asia and China focus on this issue. We've got 5 to 7 minutes max to have this insight. And I let the floor to Professor Chi. If you're ready, just tell us if it's okay for you.
Yes. Can you see my PowerPoint?
I think that it's okay. For the technique side on the live stream, we can see the PowerPoint of Professor Chi, if it's okay. I think that it's good. So, Professor Chi, the floor is yours.
Okay, I can start?
You can start. That's it for 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So it's my great pleasure to present in terms of the China climate policies, actions, and achievements after Paris Agreement. Because currently I'm the major author in terms of the fourth National Climate Change Assessment Report of China. I'm in charge of the climate policy action and achievement since 2015. The time period is the same as Paris Agreement the past 5 years. So in terms of climate action, China after Paris Agreement, the emission targets of the 13th five-year plan is actually the same period during as the Paris Agreement past 5 years. The target is from 2015 to this year, the carbon intensity must decrease 18%. And the installed capacity of the hydropower will be 440 million kW, and wind power is 200 million, and solar power 100 million, and nuclear power 58 million kW. And also control the total coal consumption to around 4.2 billion tons by this year, and increase the proportion and natural gas in total energy consumption to about 10% in this year. This is the fossil fuel consumption target, and the non-fossil energy target, and the carbon intensity decrease target during the past 5 years, which is the 13th five-year plan. And in order to realize the target, we take many actions to reduce carbon emissions. The national, including the national action, local sector, company, and community actions, such as the allocation of emission reduction target in each province, and develop low carbon pilot cities and provinces, and issue moderate energy efficiency standards, and top runner program for improving energy efficiency, and start the power market reform, and energy consumption quota and trading program, and carbon market or ETS pilots, and green power certificate trading pilot, low carbon technology R&D and change, and forest protection, restoration, forest, and so on. In the national level, local province or city level, sector level, company and community level take these actions in order to realize the target of the past 5 years. So for example, the ETS pellets, this is the 7 ETS pellets carbon price, just in how to say, yes, it's the recently trading price at October 5. The Hubei province where my university located, its price is 27.37 RMB, and Beijing is the highest 90 RMB, and Shenzhen is 33, and so on. This is the 7 ETS pellets carbon price. And the effectiveness of the ETS pellets from the general level in terms of the environmental benefit, including the carbon emission reduction, the energy consumption reduction, and so on. This, in terms of the efficiency, that is the carbon intensity or energy intensity, and the economic benefit, that is the sectors covered by the ETS, their profit growth and their employment, job, and so on. The structure means the energy structure, the coal consumption percentage in the total energy consumption. My team do rigorous research during the past 5 years about the ETS compared with the non-ETS subsectors, which include 39 subsectors. Most of them are industry subsectors, include the 30 provinces of China. This is more detail about the 4 aspects, the carbon emission reduction and so on. So our finding is that the ETS pellets policy leads to an environmental benefit and efficiency improvement. The ETS pellets has no significant impact on economic benefit and structure optimization. That means when we use the ETS pellets in the 7 provinces and cities, it really reduce the carbon emission and increase the carbon and energy efficiency based on no damage or the economic growth and the job loss, no damage. But the energy structure do not improved by the ETS. So the ETS, in terms of the environment benefit and the efficiency, is very positive. And the economic and the structure keep the same, at least no damage to the economic and improve the energy structure. So in terms of China's achievement in reducing carbon emission, in 2 years ago, accumulated drop of carbon CO2 emission is 45.8% from 2005. Totally complete the target ahead of 2 years. Finish our 13 years, 5 years plan, the target. This is the energy mixes improvement compare 2015, 2018. The non-fossil energy from 7.4 increased to 15, almost double, and the natural gas from 2% increased to 8.6%. The coal consumption from 72.4% decreased 57.7%. In terms of the new renewable energy, in 2 years ago, that is a complete year of our target. The installed capacity, is 729 million kW, 38.4% of total power generation. The electricity generation is 1,876 GWh, 26.7% of total generation. Actual electricity consumption is this one. Yeah, this is a renewable energy. So all of this shows in 2018, we complete our target ahead of 2 years. Now, just 2 months ago, in September 22nd, Chinese declare its 2 targets. One is before 2030, our carbon emission will reach peak ahead of time. And before 2060, China will try to realize carbon neutrality. So if China were to achieve its announced goal of achieving carbon neutrality before 2060, it would lower global warming projections by around 0.2 to 0.3 degree, the biggest single reduction ever estimated by the Climate Action Tracker. And now China is also preparing its 14th five-year plan to support strongly this target, and also preparing its long-term low-carbon development strategy and pathway, which will provide strong policy and action support for peak emission before 2030 and carbon neutrality before 2006, and will submit to the United Union. China National ETS will formally start trading, maybe in next year's January or February, which firstly cover fossil fuel power and heat sectors, and then enlarge its coverage to steel, cement, electrolytic aluminum, and so on, which will include 8 major sectors and nearly 30 subsectors. Our policy, except the other policies, the carbon market is a very important, market-oriented policy we will depend on. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Professor Chi, for this broad view of the China policy, what China have achieved since 5 years. Now with the carbon neutrality pledge, this is something which is very high and a huge topic by your side. We are going to now have a very, very smart transition to go now to the exclusive talk with Stefan Joaquin. And let's start in very, very few seconds.
Welcome back.
You can say the reboot time.
We are online. Come on.
Okay, so let's back now to this another session for an exclusive talk with Stéphane Joaquin. Thank you very much for being there from the panel. Also, Stéphane, we know it's a very, very early morning by your side. And now we're going to have a dedicated focus on clean tech, climate tech era to have a very, very smart discussion with you. We would like to know more, to know better before introducing to know more about you, about your track records. So the first question I will ask you is an entrepreneur before switching in a pure player VC boutique. Let the floor yours to introduce better yourself, Stéphane, please.
Merci beaucoup. So first of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the gift of enjoying a beautiful sunrise this morning. I have been able to begin this panel in the dark and start to watch the sunrise over the beautiful nature. So thank you for that. I have always been an entrepreneur. Since I was in university, I was already building my own companies and growing them. I have lived all around the world and been involved in technology innovation for almost 30 years now. And I have always been attracted to watching, the way we do things change, So if we look at the industry I was in many years ago, for a long time, telecom infrastructure and technology, and changing the way we communicate. If you remember, I don't know how many people are old enough to remember 25 years ago what a cell phone looked like, but it was a suitcase. It was a Motorola suitcase like this big, and it was $4,000. So you bought a $4,000 Motorola heavy suitcase that could do one thing: call somebody, call your mother. That's all it knew how to do. $4,000. So how is it that we went from that to slick, powerful iPhones and Samsung phones that are very quick on fast networks with 30 frames per second, beautiful video that we're all using now, including today? How did we go from that to that? It's technology, it's innovation, right? It's not just government policy, and it's not just taxes if we don't do this or this thing right. It was mass investment in new ecosystems, new technologies that were then acquired by larger companies and then implemented at scale. Or in some cases went public and remained independent and watched over the changing of a guard, right? Some companies were first movers, but then were replaced by other companies who executed better. Do you remember when you had a MySpace account? I don't think that anybody has a MySpace account anymore because they're all too busy on Facebook or other social networks. Do you remember when you used Lycos or Netscape to search the internet? Well, Microsoft made sure that you used Explorer and then Safari on Apple, and you don't browse on Netscape anymore, but they were the first mover. So who I am is somebody who identifies trends and executes in the marketplace. And about a decade ago, recognized that climate change was a major problem and saw that I could marry my love of innovation with my love of nature, because I could not imagine passing the world onto my children and their children in such a situation where there are once in 100-year storms every year, where every coastal city is flooding, where ocean levels are rising and island nations are disappearing, food insecurity, unlivable places in the Middle East and other warm countries. I didn't want that. So I saw an opportunity. and I started a fund called Energous Ventures, whose sole intention was how to invest in climate tech in a way that wasn't being done, at the time. In other words, in a way that actually had impact on climate change and not just a lot of money wasted into technology companies who didn't actually commercialize. That was for me the biggest pain point. And that's the introduction to who I am, somebody who looks out of the box and finds, actual solutions to things that are not working, and then goes out and executes.
It's a good introduction and also a good presentation for the first part of the talk, Stefan, because as you mentioned, you have noticed you were involved also on the first clean tech wave from quite 15 to 20 years ago. Do you think that this climate tech / clean tech / green tech, whatever, in fact, it's a new era to invest in this field? And what is different? What is the main difference between yesterday in investing in this field and today?
Yesterday, a lot of money was lost, and today, a lot of money will be made. That's the main difference. Why? The difference is very simple. We saw funds take in large amounts of money from institutional investors to invest in the first wave of climate tech. And it invested using investing practices that were more for the internet technologies and other sectors of tech. And what they discovered is that it doesn't work because this is a capital intensive space. As I mentioned earlier, these are millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in some case that you need to risk, before you find out if it actually works or not. So what ended up happening is tech companies received money from funds, but never commercialized. They hit a wall. The minute they tried to sell their product into the marketplace said, come back when you have more references. I can't trust you until I see that you've been in the field operating. And that is the problem. That is the dilemma. And that was where we were failing, is that, it was a chicken and egg. They needed the first customers in order to receive the references needed. And until they did, they would, hit a wall and always come back to investor asking for more money. Eventually, they would die. So some companies that were notable successes until they were failures, really big ones, United States solar company like Solindra got huge money from the Obama administration, Department of Energy, and they looked like a darling in solar, but they did not commercialize well, and then they failed. And then the Republicans in the United States used that as an example of how Democrats waste money. Okay, another great example in a high-tech, leader country called, Israel. In Israel, you had Better Place, Shai Agassi's startup that was a way to reinvent the way that we do electric car charging. And he took in over $1 billion and built a behemoth company, but with no commercialization. The strategy for revenues was very, very weak. And so eventually all the investors lost all their money. And we're talking big institutions and billionaire individuals lost a lot of money on that company. And so there are a lot of examples in clean tech wave one of a lot of money lost. Why is it different now? What we are doing now is recognizing that if we want to commercialize, we should be investing in projects and in the technology companies that supply the projects. So what we did differently is create a hybrid investment strategy that invests in the wind farm and the wind turbine company with a new innovation that supplies the wind farm. The ocean energy power plant, because you have a massive resource of energy from the ocean, wave and tidal, but tidal was more ready to be commercialized than wave. So we invested in a tidal farm in Nova Scotia, Canada, and then the best turbines and platforms from a German company called Shuttle Hydro that supply the project. We do it in solar, in off-grid solar. We are building the world's biggest vertical farm, which I'll talk about more later. All of these projects we invest in drive revenues for our portfolio companies and give them the references so they can commercialize. Now, this seems like a very simple idea, right? It seems like an idea that you can draw on the back of a napkin. You can be on both sides of the supply chain and you can facilitate the commercialization. But believe me, it was considered radical, very different for the the institutional finance world, which was used to very sort of siloed way of investing.
That's it.
So that's the answer to your question of what is different from phase 1 to phase 2.
Do you think in add that this COVID period with its COVID effects, like reducing the mobility, of course, the greenhouse gas emission have also reduced mechanically. By your side, what you have learned during this period, and what can we could learn all together?
Well, I learned a few things. I think that I, along with many other human beings around the world, learned in a very, very visceral way, in a very real way, how connected we all are as human beings. You see, COVID does not know borders. COVID does not know one country's policies versus another country's policies. A virus will travel across borders and will connect all humans together and be in the same problem and the same solution. So that's very, very important for climate change, because it reminds us that we are not multi-ethnic, multiracial world. There is one race in this world. It's the human race. We are a human race. We are among other species, but within humans, it doesn't matter what color your skin is, we are all human beings. Okay? So COVID showed us that. And one thing we did for climate change at that time is back in the spring, when we saw the beginnings of the confinements and all of the policies being put into place, we also realized how much the average individual wants to participate in the solution around climate change, and not just to demonstrate, to go to marches with Greta on Friday, this 17-year-old Swedish girl. I was in Monaco with Prince Albert and the Monaco Gala that he puts on every year for climate change, and it's called Gala for the Global Oceans. And one night I'm in a tuxedo with Robert Redford and Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban and Gwen Stefani and all of the rich people and the famous people. And $42 million was raised for the ocean, and an amazing night. The next day, I flew back to Canada and I was in the march. I went on my electric bike and I went to the march, 500,000 people in downtown Montreal with Greta. And so I was with the global elites, and then I was with the people. And when I was with the people, I asked the people why they were there, and they all told me the same thing. They want to be part of the solution. They don't just want to point the finger. So we launched, we have Energous Ventures, which is a fund, but we wanted to make it accessible to the everyman. So we launched a crowd fund during COVID with this idea that was planted from that march. So it's called the Gaia Fund, okay? The Gaia Fund, GAIA Fund, FUND.com. And any of the people here on the webinar can go and they can look at that Gaia Fund. It's a global crowd fund that invests in climate tech alongside the deal flow. But if you are not a high net worth person, not accredited investor, then you can put a few €100 or €50. And the idea was very simple. What if millions of people around the world put 50 or €250? That would have the potential to move things. So we created a platform which, again, to answer your question, COVID time showed us how connected we all are. So we decided to create a platform to allow us to come together and to be part of the solution.
Sure. So it's very insightful to see in the same world the two way of driving this same issue, the complementation between the two, from top down to bottom up, as we mentioned also during the Paris Agreement negotiation, and it's still today. Do you think that this COVID also period drive us to go beyond our own limits? Even if you are a political person, or you sit in the board, you manage your fund, you are a citizen, an employee, you are a student. You think that it pushes you out of your own box to think differently, to act differently, and switch to the entrepreneur side. We know that entrepreneurship, investment, will play a central role for achieving this goal, because we have to bootstrap teams to engage people in one vision, one mission, to keep them up to date, to raise their talent, to bootstrap new solution with them. Do you think that entrepreneurship has been more as quite a must to share broader? Entrepreneurship is not only for entrepreneurs. People have to be entrepreneur of their life, and they can act each day at each step of the society.
Yes, actually, that's a good statement. You say entrepreneurship isn't just for entrepreneurs. There is a term I like. It's called intrapreneur. Intrapreneur. What's an intrapreneur? Is somebody who is entrepreneurial inside of a bigger organization, also in their life, but also even you can be entrepreneur in a big company. You can be the person who drives innovation inside of an organization. You don't have to just be a guy with a startup, right? So to answer your question, if COVID has pushed people beyond their limits, I believe some yes and some no. And let me explain my answer. In every moment in history of instability, in every moment of economic instability, in every moment of security instability, wars, medical, emergencies, pandemics, things like that, we have seen winners and losers, okay? Companies and human beings that could not adapt to the new reality and take advantage of it failed. They failed in their life. They failed to be happy. They were more depressed. You see the suicide rate is going up, for example, now. Companies failed because they did not adapt. Okay.
Depression era. It could
yes,
be like this.
Exactly. But the opportunity to make success, to make money, but not only money, to make impact, to change things for the better in a time of instability is incredible. You know, there were fortunes made during the Second World War, right? You had a terrible war going on, but you also had the foundation for what became some very large companies who took advantage of the situation of wartime. So what I would say is COVID is showing us an incredible difference in types of people, types of company, types of ways of doing things. Some people really need structure. They needed the structure of their job, and all of a sudden they were told, you have to stay home, you have to do this, you have to do that. Those people tend to believe everything the media tells them. They are counting every COVID infection and every COVID death along with the media. Everything is being reported in this way. They will be the first one in line for the vaccine. They need structure. They need to follow rules. They need to be in a box. Then there are other people on the other extreme of the spectrum for whom this whole thing is a conspiracy theory. This whole thing is, I mean, you know, maybe they believe there's an actual virus, but maybe they also believe that it's about control. It's about some systems of control, moving to fascism, moving to this, moving to that. You have two extremes on the spectrum of what people are believing now, okay? It's very dangerous, Fabrice. Why is it dangerous? Because we are losing our grasp of what is truth. We don't even know what is truth. Nobody believes anybody. Nobody trusts anybody. Trump maybe lost an election, but he has half of the country believing that he didn't lose an election because they're playing with the truth. So there is an opportunity in these moments of instability to rise up, find solutions. And this is why I spend a lot of time in nature, because for me, nature is truth. When I look at the tree trunk that is big like this, he has been through pandemics and economic crises, and he's still there. The tree says to me, cut away all of the bullshit. Let's talk about what's really true, okay? That nature is a very great equalizer, and that's what I'm working to save, you know, is nature is the truth.
Sure. Very appreciate that your comment and remarks and experience, Stefan. Before preparing this talk, we said as you are effectively in nature, and we make the connection test. It's to connect and to reconnect. Let's are very pleased to appreciate the snow by your side. It's thanks for sharing.
I hope you like
Stefan.
the view.
Very beautiful to have in live stream. Very interesting also to have all of you. I would like now to thanks again, Stefan, for this exclusive talk. Thanks all my distinguished speakers from China and from France, and also thanks all of you, all attendees. We have been a little bit late according to the delay, but we want to share your question, to make interaction with you. It's very important, as we all said during this exclusive webinar, sharing something right, something to reconnect of real things that we can save us and avoid all wrong decision, wrong actions in our daily life. I would like just to say that this Paris Agreement plus these climate tech eras could push us from a treaty to the practice. Hope that this new era will push all of us in this way, and just to have a smart agenda of 2021. As you all know, there will have the COP 15 in Kunming in China on biodiversity. This is the complementary side of the climate change. Biodiversity and environment is very our natural common asset of all of us. It's very almost high as the climate change to preserve. This is the first one I would like to share with you. It will be all on the 17th and 30th May, next May in Kunming, China. The second one is we have already mentioned is the COP26 in Glasgow in the next November. It will be all on from the 1 to the 12th of November in UK, and you can already book your 2 and 3 June in Paris according to the conference we are going to co-organize. This is the carbon pricing conference. It will go deeper around carbon neutrality / net zero, carbon markets. If we have to put a mix of a better price or a better tax or something else to bootstrap this, and to also to embed this in institutional and corporate policies to make things happen. This conference will be the opportunity also to have a showcase of climate techs we're going to pre-select and carbon neutrality plans from institutions, from corporates themselves, to also to award them. So I would like to, again, thank all of you, my distinguished speakers. Thanks also, George, for the tech side, for the connection and all the logistics. Is very, very appreciated to make this happen with you. And thanks, George. And I will let the mic and the floor also from you, my distinguished speakers today, to say a message for this closing exceptional event. So please, Isabelle, Dr. Isabelle Czanikowski-Loriol, the floor is yours for this closing remark.
Yeah, so thank you. I was very, very interested by the webinar, and we all realize that the efforts to make are huge and that there are no single solution. We must act at all levels. Therefore, it's very important that people from different backgrounds and expertise from different countries to meet together to discuss and identify solutions and implement them. And so we all stakeholders need to interact and work jointly, researchers, but also engineers, economists, financial players, policymakers, regulators, investors and entrepreneurs, associations, citizens. This webinar was a good opportunity to have such a dialogue with a variety of people, and I'm looking forward to the carbon pricing conference on June the 2nd and the 3rd in Paris, and also online, to go deeper into all our discussions and possible solutions to fight climate change.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Isabelle Czanikowski-Loriol. The floor is yours now for you, Professor Xiaozhou Qi, for this closing remark.
Okay, thank you. So this webinar for me is very, very successful and helpful. I benefit a lot from all the partners who give very outstanding and smart, ideas and experience sharing their expert, very, very helpful thinking and ideas. And I hope we can meet in Paris in 2nd to 3rd of June, when the COVID-19 can be controlled thoroughly by our human people, and I believe we can fight against it, and we can meet in Paris and Glasgow for the COP26. Just like this webinar, one from Asia, and 3 of you from Europe, and Stephen from North America. That means the three, the three continent, we meet together and we cooperate and we will share. I think this world the climate change, global climate change governance need our sharing, our cooperation, just like this webinar. No matter where you come from, we should cooperation, believe each other, share each other, and fight against the climate change and the current COVID-19. I believe we human people will be, triumph. Thank you. Victory belongs human being.
Thank you, Professor Chi. Very appreciate also these closing remarks that we all shared with the audience, with you all. And Stefan, please, the floor is yours for these closing remarks.
Okay. First of all, Sheshe, Professor Chi, and merci beaucoup pour Professeur Chernyakhovsky et pour Fabrice. Gracias, Jorge. Great webinar, great initiative. Happy to have been part of this discussion that is so important. I remember those years ago being at the Paris conference and giving speeches and meeting with people, and I remember being left with the thought, how will we implement and track what has been set forth in this conference? And here we are 5 years later doing exactly that, looking at the implementation, ratification process, and keeping the stakeholders honest and making sure that we don't just congratulate ourselves too much, but lose sight of what we're really working towards. So that's what I'm most excited about, is to be results oriented, to see measurable reductions in carbon emissions all around the world, and to see those reductions happen in alignment with profit will ensure the sustainability of the trend. As long as we can reinvent our world economy, in a direction that is more sustainable, I think we will see the growth rates that we need to see in order to stop the polar ice cap from melting, and entire ice sheets landing into the ocean, and all of the other devastating effects of climate change. So let's keep our eye on cooperation, collaboration. Let's keep our eye on innovation as a major tool for cost reduction, and not rely too heavily on policies, and regulation. They have their place, but the market maker is innovation and cost reduction. So let's create conditions to allow those innovations to flow into projects. And the last comment is, let's remember our humanness. Let's remember our connectedness. And if COVID taught us anything, it's that we are all in this together. And let's remember that, that message when we think about the planet. We're all in this together, and we're all human beings. We are flawed and we are beautiful, and we have to be partners.
I do appreciate your remarks, Stefan, and very pleased with this great hope, Professor Chi, to have all of you, the 2 and 3 next June 21 for the carbon pricing conference. All of you online who are watching in live stream this exclusive event. Hope it has been a great moment also for you. By Climate Tech Venture, we support the pioneer, the engaged entrepreneurs to make partnership. And yes, as you all mentioned, cooperation as human, as we all are independently, even if you are in a public or private sector, we are all to cope with all together, public and private, as you mentioned, Stefan. Very, very important. Let's now try the best to do our best all to set things right now for this next decade. It's now, it's today. We hope that all of you stay safe, spend a good time with your family, with your friend for this next holidays. And surely keep tuned for the next year. See you next.
See you next.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.